How do you bend emotion to your logical will on a repeated basis? So it's the intellect guiding the mind. This is how it's done. In fact, this is really what the question is asking. So the analogy that we often use when we're talking about this sort of question is to say that the intellect is like the riverbanks, the mind is like water. So when you have water flowing through a river, the water takes whichever course the banks dictate. So when those banks are strong and deep, a torrent of water can be redirected appropriately. If the banks are weak, shallow, it breaches the riverbanks, it inundates the fields, it destroys homes and families. So what we're looking to do is to make sure that our emotion is effectively redirected. So what we're looking to do is to reconnect towards an ideal. So this is the method of bending emotion to logical will. What we are looking to do is to redirect that flow of emotion towards a conclusion that we have previously drawn. So that is done through questioning, through self-reflection. So just think of the mind as that flow of thought, that flow of attention. When we begin to ask questions, when we go through a self-reflection process, we are redirecting that flow of emotions towards a target that we have previously chosen. That is towards our ideal. So when the intellect is guiding the mind towards the chosen ideal, this is that confluence that we were talking about. So if we just have a quick look at some examples of some self-reflection questions. You'd need to do this anytime that you recognize the emotion may be dictating your course through life. Either the thoughts that you're entertaining, the attitudes that you hold, the choices that you're making or being prompted to make. Anytime you feel emotion is having too much of an influence outside the intellect's control, this is when you will need to practice this. So this is not an exhaustive list of self-reflection questions. This is something that you would need to develop yourself to create your own process that works for you. But it gives a sort of an idea. So an emotion comes up. The first question we ask is to say, what am I feeling? Or if it's some sort of inner impulse to action, you can say, what am I thinking about doing? I'm thinking about going down the road and having ice cream. I'm thinking about whatever it happens to be. So this is the first thing, is to analyze the present conditions. Simply observe it. What am I feeling? I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling lonely. What am I thinking about doing? I'm thinking about, could be a huge range of things. So once we've established what that is, we then go on to look at the trigger and the cause. The trigger relates to the thing that interacts with my internal cause. So we used a very simple example earlier on of the September 11 attacks. Seeing the attacks on the TV screen is the trigger. The cause of my emotion of shock, horror, disgust, outrage, etc. is that desire for the well-being of my fellow citizens. So when I see my fellow citizens being harmed in this way, my desire for their well-being is being triggered by the stimulus, and the reaction is this cascade of negative emotions, or unpleasant emotions at least. So we can go through this analysis. What am I experiencing? Thought, feeling, or impulse to action. Why am I experiencing? Where did it come from? When we are talking about continuing to entertain the thought flow or about following through on that impulse to action, then we can start to analyze further and say, well, what am I going to gain from it? What am I going to lose from it? So this is essentially a pros and cons list. Why would I continue to entertain this thought flow? What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about my ex-partner. Why am I thinking about it? Well, I saw that photograph and it reminded me of the holiday that we had. What am I gaining by thinking about this? What are the pros? What do I lose by thinking about this? What are the cons? Where is this thought flow taking me? So too with action. I'm thinking about taking the drug. What do I gain by it? And you can list out the things you gain by it. What do I lose by it? And where is it taking me? Again, this is not a judgment at this point. It's really more just analysis and understanding. It's important that we don't presume to know what our conclusion is going to be at this point. We're still just analyzing. So then when we've understood approximately where the thought flow, the emotion or the action might be taking me, we relate that back to our ideal. Who do I want to be? What do I want in my life in this particular area? What am I feeling? I'm feeling an attraction to someone other than my spouse. What am I thinking about doing? I'm thinking about following through on it. Why? Well, my relationship hasn't been going so well. That's the trigger. The cause is my own attachment and possessiveness. What do I have to gain by it? Some excitement, some satisfaction, some relief. What do I have to lose by it? A marriage. Where is it taking me? I'm thinking more and more and more about this person. Who do I want to be? I want to be someone who's in a stable, loving marriage, who functions with integrity and selflessness. Okay, if that's the case, if that's my ideal for my marriage, then what is it that I can think about? What is the feeling that I can start to elicit? What is the action that I can adopt right now that moves me slightly closer towards that goal? So when we go through this process of analysis, what we're doing is we're assessing the current conditions and we are analyzing our way towards the ideal that we have set for ourselves. And then we conclude with a course of action to adopt. These are the three aspects: present condition, the proposed ideal, and the way to get there. So this is how we bend emotion to logical will, is by connecting things through a chain of self-reflection towards a previously chosen ideal. And so this is why the selection and the creation of an ideal is so important. We need to invest a significant amount of our thinking and time into determining what is my ideal. So in every circumstance in life, we should be able to relate ourselves back to the ideal. What am I doing and why am I doing this? How does this relate to my ideal? So we may have a few different ideals for the main areas of life, perhaps marriage, career, family, etc. We should also have an overarching ideal of self-development, so that in any situation that we get ourselves into, we are able to negotiate our way back to that ideal and redirect our emotions appropriately.